I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, emergency evacuation. A dam has been destroyed in Ukraine, threatening thousands of lives. We have the latest. Holy Father's health. Pope Francis returns from the hospital after a medical checkup. Drawing a crowd. New developments regarding the remarkable foundress of a monastery in rural Missouri. And swimming with the sharks. We speak with an entrepreneur who emphasizes faith. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. Our top story tonight, President Joe Biden holds a cabinet meeting at the White House, and one of the pressing topics is abortion. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, good evening to you. Earlier, the press secretary said the meeting would focus on several issues, including what the White House calls attacks on reproductive rights. But tonight, it's a dam in Ukraine that's got the administration's attention. President Joe Biden is flanked by his vice president and cabinet secretaries as the executive branch leaders discussed key domestic and international issues.
We're not leaving. We are not leaving. We're going to help Ukraine.
The White House is responding to an enormous disaster in Ukraine, where a major hydroelectric dam collapsed. Ukraine and Russia accuse each other of blowing it up. The torrent of water threatens communities downstream and could endanger the cooling systems at Europe's largest nuclear power plants.
So, in addition to loss of life and livelihoods, its destruction could very well have a devastating impact on Ukraine's energy security. And it will certainly have an impact on Ukraine's canal system.
Ukraine's foreign minister calls for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council to deal with the disaster.
Russia will be held accountable for the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam and other crimes.
Also today in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky meets with Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, special representative of Pope Francis. And after Denmark's prime minister visited President Biden in the Oval Office yesterday, I asked her about the Vatican's attempts to help bring peace to Ukraine.
Ma'am, Pope Francis has put together a peace mission to try to end the war in Ukraine. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think all of us are very interested in peace in Ukraine. This has, of course, also been on the agenda with a talk with the president. But it takes two to tango, so we need some signals from Russia. And I don't think any of us in the alliance are willing to do anything without Ukraine. So it starts with the what Ukraine wants out of this.
Also tonight on this D-Day anniversary, President Biden tweeted earlier the troops who stormed the shores of Normandy 79 years ago today, June 6, 1944, represent the greatest generation in our history, and that they answered the free world's call at its greatest hour of need. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
A House Oversight Committee Chair, Congressman James Comer, says that he will begin the process to hold FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress. The Republican from Kentucky says the FBI did not comply with a subpoena to hand over a document alleging Joe Biden accepted a bribe when he was vice president. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has the latest on that. Eric.
Well, good evening, Tracy. Sources close to the investigation tell me that the FBI document allegedly describes a $5 million criminal scheme involving then Vice President Joe Biden and a foreign national, exchanging money for policy decisions. After both Congressman James Comer and Democrat Jamie Raskin looked at the document during a classified FBI briefing, both lawmakers had very different takeaways.
It suggest a pattern of bribery where payments would be made through shell accounts and multiple banks. And there's a term for that. It's called money laundering.
Congressman Comer says the document is part of an ongoing investigation the FBI is conducting in the state of Delaware against the Biden family.
So in your opinion, there was no criminal charges that you see?
Not only were there no criminal charges, there was no escalation of the FBI's investigation.
Despite that classified briefing, Congressman Comer says the FBI is still not in compliance with the subpoena to turn over the physical document to the committee, and he is bringing contempt charges against the FBI director. Chairman Comer says first the FBI claimed the document didn't exist. Now it's currently being used in an ongoing investigation. Information gathered by a highly credible informant.
Who has been used by the FBI for over 10 years and has been paid over 6 figures.
Congressman Raskin downplayed the document, the briefing, as well as the allegations, saying the source may be credible, but information the source reported came from a conversation with someone else.
We're talking about is secondhand hearsay, and so it's not the source, the confidential human source, who is the origin of the particular claim. That confidential human source is the person who reported that someone else was saying this.
Congressman James Comer said that the Oversight Committee will actually meet on Thursday to vote on whether to hold FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress. The FBI did release a statement saying in part that believes that the contempt charges are unwarranted. The reason? Because they allowed committee leaders to see the document. Tracy?
Well, Eric, switching gears just a bit here, I understand that there's an update on plans by the House Freedom Caucus to take action against Speaker McCarthy after the debt ceiling deal. What is the latest on that?
Well, you may recall that it was the Freedom Caucus that they were going to start proceedings to remove Speaker McCarthy after they said that it was a bad deal, the recent debt ceiling. Several members that I talked to actually are telling me that there was no discussion on whether or not to remove any member when they met on Monday. So as of right now, Speaker McCarthy's seat is still safe. Tracy?
Okay, thank you so much, Eric. Well, Pope Francis makes a quick visit to an Italian hospital today for medical exams. Vatican officials confirmed the trip to a nearby medical center. He returned to the Vatican before noon. The visit comes 2 months after he was hospitalized with a case of bronchitis. The Holy Father's next scheduled event is the weekly Talk to Pilgrims tomorrow in St. Peter's Square. Well, U.S., Japanese, and Philippine Coast Guard ships staged law enforcement drills near the South China Sea. The drills included the interception and boarding of a vessel suspected of carrying weapons of mass destruction. All 3 countries deployed Coast Guard ships for the exercises. Washington continues to reinforce alliances in Asia amid increasing tensions with China. Iran claims that it has created a hypersonic missile that can travel 15 times the speed of sound. Iran's state television is reporting that the missile has a range of up to 870 miles and can pass through any regional missile defense system. The missile, called the Conqueror, comes as tensions remain high with the United States over Tehran's nuclear program. Protests were held in the capital of Kenya today against a proposed finance bill. The proposed bill would raise the cost of living as well as increase taxes. Protesters voiced concerns over the rising cost of items such as food, rice, and fuel. Police dispersed the demonstrators using tear gas and arrested some of the protesters. Well, we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including a remarkable discovery. We take a look at why pilgrims continue to visit a monastery in rural Missouri, plus what Pope Francis is saying about the need for community. Oklahoma has approved the first Catholic charter school in the United States after a vote by the statewide virtual charter school board. Governor Kevin Stitt praised the decision as a win for religious liberty and education freedom. St. Isidore of Seville will be an online school. Our pilgrims continue to flock to rural Missouri amid a remarkable story about the foundress of a Benedictine Order of Religious Sisters. 2 members of that order just gave their first TV interview to EWTN News in Depth. We go now to Catherine Hadro, EWTN News Contributor, who just returned from rural Missouri. Catherine, great to see you. I know that you had the first and so far only TV news interview with the Benedictine Sisters of Mary. What did they tell you about their foundress?
Oh, my goodness. Well, Tracy, it was such an honor to travel to Missouri and see firsthand what's happening, and it's an honor to speak with you today. In speaking with the sisters, the first word they used to describe their foundress, Sister Wilhelmina, is lovable. They said she was so lovable. And the second thing they said to describe her was that she had a love for the Blessed Virgin Mary. Yes, she loved our Lord, and she loved Mary. She had a great devotion to the rosary. They said she loved jokes. She loved to have fun. She was kind of mischievous. She was a poet as well, frequently reciting poems around the Abbey. Overall, the way they described her, Sister Wilhelmina was faithful and fun.
Yeah, and not only does, Sister Wilhelmina's body appear to be in remarkable condition, but apparently her habit does as well. What did the Benedictines of Mary have to say about that?
Yes, well, Tracy, this is probably what stood out to me the most in my interview, because the sisters said when they had experts come to see the body for themselves, they were obviously marveling at the body, but they were almost more so marveling at the condition of her habit, because the cloth inside the coffin had disintegrated. There was a cloth that had closed Sister Wilhelmina's jaw when she was laid to rest. That had completely disintegrated. But the sisters said her habit looked just as it did the day they laid her in the coffin. And to them, it made perfect sense, because they said Sister Wilhelmina, she really fought for that habit. She really fought to wear that traditional habit. In her previous religious order and religious community, she experienced a lot of heartache when there were some modern changes being made to the habit. She loved the traditional habit because she saw it as integral to her vocation as a bride of Christ, something that could not be compromised. So to them, it made perfect sense. Also in remarkable condition, in addition to her habit, her miraculous medal, her brown scapular, and also a crown of flowers placed upon her head, which would expect it to be dust by this point, but they were dried upon her head still in dried condition. The sisters observed it in this way. They said everything in that coffin that pointed to death had disintegrated, but everything in that coffin and touching Sister Wilhelmina's body that pointed to life, such as her vocation as a bride of Christ, that stayed intact.
That really is remarkable. It's so incredible to hear, Catherine. And thousands of people, they have descended upon the Abbey there. Tell us what you saw. I mean, the impact of this story, and also the sisters' reaction to all this fanfare.
I mean, it was really incredible. You had people who were nearby who came, people who traveled from all across the country, people who are faithful Catholics, those who are not Catholic, and just curious to see what's happening. But something that really surprised me, I asked the sisters, has this been disruptive to your life? What has this been like to have to deal with all these thousands of people coming to your quiet rural abbey? And it really surprised me because, Tracy, they said they really didn't notice that much. They were able to maintain their day of Ora et Labora, of prayer and work, because of all the volunteers, the local volunteers, the local families that came and helped to address all those crowds. The sisters said they were able to stay at their part of the Abbey that is closed off to the public. And the only time they really noticed all the thousands of pilgrims was during Mass, when they saw that the pews were completely packed. So they really expressed their gratitude to the volunteers who came and helped out with parking, with handing out water bottles, with answering questions, so that they could maintain their day and life of prayer.
Wow. And I know the sisters believe that Sister Wilhelmina really could be the first African American to be found incorrupt, of course, pending church investigation. Did they speak more to you about the significance of all this?
Yes, this is very significant, and especially considering the context of Sister Wilhelmina's life. I mean, she was born in 1924, but the sisters said this when it comes to that aspect of Sister Wilhelmina's life. Here is this Black Missouri nun who started this religious order, and you look around at all the sisters, they're all white. Now, there is one Benedictine of Mary who joined a few years ago who's from Kenya, and she lives at their Ava, Missouri location. But if you look around, everyone is white. And the sisters said to them, this points to unity. It points to how Sister Wilhelmina is bringing everyone together, and that this is an opportunity for charity.
Beautiful. So beautiful, Catherine. Before I let you go, do you know what's next in all of this for the order and for Sister Wilhelmina?
Right. Well, that's a big question. For those who are hoping to visit Sister Wilhelmina's body, her body is now in the glass case at the church, at the Abbey. But when it comes to what's next, no cause for sainthood can be opened until someone has been dead for 5 years. For Sister Wilhelmina, it has been 4 years. And so Bishop Johnston of the Diocese of Kansas City, St. Joseph, has been clear that No official investigation is underway. And so we are not to treat Sister Wilhelmina as if she is a saint. We are not to treat objects that touch her, such as rosaries, as relics. But of course, we at EWTN News will be following the next steps very closely.
Yes, we will for sure indeed. Catherine, thank you so much. Always great to be with you. A Pontifical Foundation is celebrating its 30th anniversary in Rome. Members of the foundation met with Pope Francis yesterday at the Vatican. The Holy Father thanked them for their commitment to spreading the social doctrine of the Church. He urged the representatives to continue contributing to the growth of the community because, quote, no one is saved alone. Joining us now from Rome is Stephanie Zu Loewenstein, board member of Centesimus Annus in Germany. Stephanie, great to be with you. Can you tell us more about your audience with the Pope and what the Holy Father emphasized in particular?
Yes, of course. It was a wonderful audience yesterday with almost 200 participants for the birthday of the Centesimus Annus Foundation. And as every year when Pope Franciscus has time, and mostly he has time, we are allowed to come to him to present our results of our work during 1 year. And then he is giving us homework. And yesterday it was very exciting, very impressive, because he told us, because he wants Fratelli Tutti really being included into our work as CEOs, as managers, as responsible people in Germany. And we had participants from France, from Italy, from Spain, and also from the United States, of course, from Chile, from Argentina, from Netherlands. And his homework really was that we have to train our empathy more, and we have to be we have to think about being in a room and having all other people also having space in this room, and not to dominate, and to look for them which are silent, and to Fratelli Tutti, to see our brothers which we normally maybe oversee. And at the end, he ended his speech with his announcement to change history, because this would change history if we really would not only see our success and our social activities, but look for the others.
I know your foundation is celebrating its 30th anniversary. Can you tell us briefly about your activities and the topics that you mainly focus on?
Yeah, 30 years ago, Pope Johannes Paul II, he was the initiator of this foundation of Christian social ethic teaching. And since 30 years, the foundation, I'm with the foundation since 11 years, the foundation is working on goals that brings into the business life, especially into the in managing life, in the CEO lives, in the life of entrepreneurs, in the life of groups, also of political and educational institutes, to bring in this goal that ethic and social ethic and Christian social ethic should be included in all works. And that's the main goal we have. And of course, we also have always the homework of all encyclicals, like Laudato Si some years ago, like Fratelli Tutti now. And it's, yes, we have to make the world a better place, and that means activity. And I think we did a great job during the 30 years. It's a marathon, and we are now warm trained, but we have to go this marathon.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. God bless. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, a monument to resilience. A historic site in France enters a new millennia. Plus, how a Catholic entrepreneur is helping small businesses. A historic medieval monastery in France, one of the country's most popular tourist destinations, is celebrating a milestone today. Mont Saint-Michel turns 1,000 years old. The World Heritage Site is being celebrated with exhibits and concerts. Today also marks the 79th anniversary of the D-Day landings in nearby Normandy. Well, finally tonight, the popular TV series Shark Tank allows entrepreneurs to pitch their ideas to successful business tycoons in the hopes of finding an investor. Well, one group has borrowed this idea and given it a Catholic angle. The new investor group, Catholic Angels, recently held an event at the Catholic University of America. It awarded $5,000 for their business, as well as the opportunity to speak with investors for future consideration. And we go now to Zak Slayback, a venture capital investor and a member of the Catholic Angels pitch competition. Zak, great to have you on. This is wonderful. Tell us, more about the Catholic Angels pitch competition and why you say that this initiative is really part of living out your Catholic faith.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So this pitch competition that we hosted at CUA this past spring, we brought together 4 entrepreneurs running their own startups and 5 professional investors, and an audience of several hundred who got to watch the pitch competition play out in real time. We had these founders who are running technology companies everywhere from a mobile app that helps parents bond with their children at bedtime, to hardware to find food allergens in food manufacturing, and everything in between. We got these founders to pitch to aligned investors who not only are not hostile to the faith, obviously, but actually want to bring the faith into the boardroom, who want to bring it into the company. And we were just absolutely blown away by the positive response, both from the audience, from the investors, and from all the founders who applied to participate in the competition. The Church, Holy Mother Church, has taught us rather explicitly for more than 100 years that an important part of the lay apostolate is fully bringing Christ, fully bringing the gospel into work, into the boardroom, into business. Pope St. John Paul II, in his encyclical Centesimus Annus, for example, says that the decision to invest in one place rather than another, to work in one place rather than another, is always, not sometimes, not hopefully, but always a moral and cultural choice. And we're finding and we're hearing more and more from founders and investors how important it is to have people, have investors, partners along the way who want to support them in bringing their faith into their businesses, whether those are ministries, obviously, but even what we might consider secular technology companies as well.
Yeah, it's always great to have somebody to walk with you in that journey. Zak, tell us a little bit more about the competition itself. As we mentioned, it was held at Catholic University of America. How many people applied, and what, you mentioned some of the ideas, but are there other ideas that you can share with us?
Yeah, we had about more than 60 companies apply to the pitch competition. We accepted 4 finally to present in an hour-long block to an audience of about 200 attendees, many of them themselves investors and entrepreneurs. And like I said, those companies that presented, they were all what we might call startups, so relatively young companies. One of our rules was we were hoping that they hadn't raised more than maybe a few $1 million through the whole lifespan of the company, and that the founders, the founding team, brought their faith into their vocation of running the company. So, like I said, we had 4 competitors that were finalists. One of those was a mobile app for parents to help their bond with their children at bedtime called Storybook. We had a hardware company that goes into food manufacturing companies and helps them detect allergens in their food manufacturing. That company named Alera. We had a company called StackCare that the founder was motivated in part by Pope Francis's teaching in Amoris Laetitia to bring the elderly into our care and keep them integrated into our lives. And that company builds hardware to help the elderly at home avoid falls, avoid the normal, the common mistakes and dangers that happen in a home with an elderly person without invading their privacy as well. And then finally, we had a technology company that helped create fashion for weddings for diaspora families and immigrants from South Asia. And that founder was motivated in large part by her Syro-Malabar Eastern Catholic upbringing.
Yeah, these are all fantastic ideas. We have a little less than a minute left, but I'm curious, what's next for the Catholic Angels pitch competition? And also, if somebody maybe wants to submit their idea or wants to get some help, how can they do so?
Absolutely. Well, we are at catholicangels.co, and we hope to be able to bring the pitch competition as a regular thing to the Cent Summit that hosted us at Catholic University, and we hope to be able to bring more founders together with faith-aligned, and faith-inspired, spirit-led investors to help them on their journey.
This is wonderful. Zach, thanks so much for coming on and talking about this. We really appreciate it. God bless you.
Thank you.
And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember that you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sable. Good night, and God bless.